All right, everyone. In response to the fiscal deplatforming of certain groups by PayPal recently, I've decided to stop really using them. I'm going to keep the account open because there are certain things you can only do through them, but really, ultimately, all you need is a debit card through your bank. So you don't need to use PayPal to accept donations. Like some people take tips on it or something. I shy away from that generally. The recurrent donations make more sense. Or, if you want a tip, use fucking Bitcoin or something. Then it's, totally outside of the realm of normal financing. But PayPal has been on the forefront of the deplatforming, sort of purging users. They have apparently done this to some UKIP party members recently. They did it certainly to Gab. They've done it to BitChute, among other groups. I find that inappropriate. I think that if a group is engaged predominantly with e-commerce, the only legitimate reason they should be kicking an account off is if the account is suspected, at least, to be engaged in criminal behavior under U.S. law. If that's the case, it should be referred to investigators to temporarily suspend their account pending the investigation. And then when that's over, of course, the decision's been made. Or if you know them, like they got convicted of murder or something, then yeah, you can get rid of their PayPal. They're a fucking murderer. But if a person is not attempting to fundraise for dubious purposes, like they're just saying, hey, people can donate to me, I make like news commentary or I have a podcast or something, PayPal shouldn't be engaged in that behavior. And make no mistake, like with deplatforming that's happening on the social media side as well as the fiscal side, these companies are not in a vacuum choosing to do this on their own. Virtually all of these instances are prefaced by hit pieces that are written in the media or by hit piece raids started by craptivistic groups. We've seen some of them, like the Stop Hate people, that show up and they complain and they threaten to complain to the advertisers that work with these sites in order to try to blackmail them essentially into doing this. Now, this does rise, in my opinion, to the level of criminal harassment. If you are going after another person in a systemic manner cross-platform and trying to get them kicked off despite the fact that in many cases they objectively have not broken any terms of service, I think that should be counted as harassment and it should be referred to prosecution. That's my opinion. I think that's one way to handle this. The other thing is this. There are two groups primarily involved with this. Both of them have a fiscal motivation in mind. The craptivistic groups work directly with these advertising firms in many cases anyway, and they certainly work with political movements. So they have a fiscal motivation. Look, a lot of these independent commentators have views that are simply anti-establishment. Don't give me this shit about them being far right. Some of these people are self-proclaimed leftists. You see people on the left, like they deplatforming some Antifa pages. Now, Antifa is a little different because it's a recognized terrorist movement, but insofar as the members thereof, in a non-organized capacity, haven't necessarily committed themselves personally any crime, their simple group membership, I'm somewhat uncomfortable with them being deplatformed too. Yes, even Antifa members. Look, a person can say, well, I'm in Antifa. I belong to this Facebook page for Antifa. Okay. Well, unless you're throwing rocks and attacking police and taking part in riots or something, you don't necessarily break any law. You could just be a passive member who shitposts online. No, I don't think you should be deplatformed at all. No, I don't think that being a member of such a group, unless it is directly encouraging, like literally inciting violence, more than situationally, no, I don't think you should be deplatformed either. But in the wake of Gab and BitChute, it's really the BitChute's the straw that breaks the camel's back for me. BitChute being deplatformed by PayPal, okay, that's enough. I don't want to do business with them. And so if you are a Patreon donor now, you can do that knowing that no, PayPal is not getting a cut of it. I encourage you to cancel your use of PayPal as well. Because the only way that we're going to rise above the craptivistic groups using the fiscal, mechanisms of the online world to try to stop all anti-establishment opposition to corruption and authoritarianism and so forth. The only way that stops is with a pushback. That is, creators have to get together and make it clear to these sites, okay, well then you don't need my business anymore. Because it's all about money for them. They're doing this because they're afraid of losing money if their advertisers get pissed off. See, these groups are threatening to contact their advertisers. Well, you do business with Gab. Gab is bad. Green Frog bad. Therefore, you should sever ties with them, even if they haven't actually done anything wrong. So look for a reason to cut them loose, or we'll contact your advertisers. It's blackmail, and it's the criminal behavior that they're engaged in. The other group that's responsible is the corporate media. They're doing it particularly because whether it's left, right, or center doesn't really matter. Independent commentators are displacing them. We are systemically outperforming as a group the corporate media, cable, old school terrestrial radio, and newsprint. You combine all of their numbers together, it's probably about the same at this point as the alt media cross-platform. Yeah, I wonder why they would want to put the screws to them. Look at all the hit pieces that are written. So a hit piece is written by about BitChute. The next day they get deplatformed by PayPal. Total coincidence, dude. No correlation whatsoever. BitChute's not even apparently really on the radar of the craptivists. I haven't seen anything about them. They're too worried about Gab for the most part. So you know that it was the hit piece that was written and then replicated ad nauseum by a bunch of other bot accounts that are run by the stupid authoritarians themselves. No, these are organized attacks and they're motivated by money. They're not motivated by, oh, the right wing is so bad, haha, we're going to deplatform hate. That's not what it's about. It's about money. It's human greed. These are corporations. And so, unfortunately, the U.S. government, by not blocking them from deplatforming people at all, is encouraging it in a de facto sense, because it has created a situation in which it's possible for these groups to be blackmailed by a bunch of activists, or coerced by the corporate media. The corporate media browbeat YouTube for weeks before they deplatformed InfoWars. It was led by CNN and the New York Times. Do you remember that? How they were talking about, oh, well, they've got all these videos that violate their terms of service and all. They began that struggle against InfoWars to try to kick them off YouTube. And when InfoWars then simply grew larger everywhere else, they deplatformed them off the rest of the internet. It was prefaced on defamatory hit pieces. Absolutely it is. Oh, they're breaking your rules. They're horrible. We should talk to your advertisers about this. Another problem, the interconnected and monopolistic corporate structures of the world means that a lot of those advertisers work with the corporate media too. Like a company might buy ad space and have sort of a seat at the table at the New York Times, and they might also be working on YouTube or Facebook or something. It's interconnected. Because it's so interconnected and thus oligarchic in the corporate sense, we have a corporate oligarchy that operates in the internet realm. In some cases, you have an outright monopoly on subgenres within the internet, or at least a duopoly like app stores. If it's an app store, there are two companies that control the apps. Google controls half of it, and Crapple controls half of it. Google has a very, very slight edge in being more pro-free speech than Crapple. Believe it or not, Apple was above the fray until a couple of years ago and didn't care as long as you bought their overpriced shit. But essentially, you have a corporate monopoly. They need to be regulated in some way. I don't care. It doesn't matter how you do it. I favor an Internet Bill of Rights. I favor the extension of the First and Fourth Amendments to cover the internet as an explicit tool of human communications for pragmatic and economic purposes. This is how you sell it to the right wing. Say, hey, you're missing out on all of this wonderful wealth generation by having creators stymied. It's more efficient. It's going to generate more wealth long term. It makes the U.S. presence online hegemonic. Why the hell wouldn't you want to support that? Why the hell wouldn't you want e-commerce to be as common as possible? You should hope that the money flows around because every transaction is taxed. By deplatforming people, they're reducing potential taxable income for certain groups of people. You should be opposed to this. And for the liberals, it's like, well, you supported net neutrality. You don't want the ISPs to be able to boot people off or throttle them. To throttle one commerce site over another, or one social platform over another, or to ban a user because they don't agree with them. You want them to be considered essentially public utilities. Well, then why not domain registrars? Why not the banking systems online? If you're going to have a monopolistic system, that system should be banned from discriminating against people. We say that some brick and mortar small business, some little farm doesn't do gay marriages, they get sued because it's such a blight on society if someone is discriminated against. And yet we don't consider political beliefs to be a protected class. We should. That's the other possibility. Simply insert into equal protection nominal legislation, say, hey, political beliefs shall be covered the same way religious beliefs, creed, and things like that are. Look, religion's a choice, so it's obvious that that doesn't play a role, whether it's a choice or a birth status. So then why not just extend it to political beliefs? No more problem. But yeah, I've stopped using PayPal. I'm not going to deal with it. There's no reason for me to use it. I can use my debit card online. There are certain eBay sellers. I use eBay. I use Amazon for publishing, but I use eBay for actually buying things usually, even though Amazon shipping is admittedly a lot faster. I like sort of the combination yard sale and junk store style of eBay a lot more. just my own personal opinion. But like on there are certain sellers now you can't use PayPal. Like they've actually begun experimenting with that. Amazon doesn't take PayPal, so like if you're doing e-commerce, I don't know why you'd bother actually. I mean, again, we need to put pressure on them. It's not that I have a stick up my ass about the company itself. It's I don't want them to continue that style of behavior. Just like the activists on the other side do want them to continue that. They want to weaponize the fiscal systems of the world and social media platforms against people they politically disagree with or that compete with them in a fiscal sense. So we need to push back. It's as simple as that. We're much more numerous. The number of people potentially abused is much larger than the number of abusers. So yeah, I think PayPal would eventually side with us. Yeah, absolutely. That's about all. Peace out.